So hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sanskar, and in this video we are going to learn how to create this React social application, which is kind of an Instagram clone, but not exactly. So here's how this application works. All the users can post and comment on other people's posts, and you will be able to create a post, delete a post, have images in this post, have a caption in that post. So let me show you a quick demo of how this works. First, we can sign in with Google. I always do this mistake. It's not sing, it's a sign. So I'll change that. So we will be signing in with Google. And once we will do, you can see now we are showing the user profile picture here, and we have this create post option. Not only that, we will be able to comment as well. So for example, I can say, I like this one, I like this one, and I can click on post and we have it here, right? So this is how we can comment. I have commented in this one as well, and I can delete this post as well. Now, only you as a user will be able to delete the post, or if you are logged in with my email, which is theindianappguy@gmail.com, that's something, a condition which I have added, but you may or you may not have to add that, right? It's basically so that I can keep a track of if somebody else is posting something which should not be on the platform. I can directly delete it from here rather than logging into the Firebase. Okay. So with that being said, here are all the things which we are going to learn in this build. The first thing is we will be learning about Firebase Authentication with Google Sign-in. We will learn about creating, reading, updating, and deleting data from Firebase Firestore database. We will learn about Firebase storage, how to upload an image, how to get the download URL of that image, and how to delete that as well. This is one of the crucial part. What I have seen is a lot of people create an application, they may or may not, usually they don't add a delete option, but if they don't delete the image. This is something which is very important because you don't have an unlimited database, right? So we will learn about how to delete the image as well. Then we have Firebase, this is done. Then we have Firebase Hosting. So we will learn how we can host this application for free online, so that you can have a domain which you can share with your family, friends, and you can have add that to your portfolio that, this is the application which I built. The people who are watching that, this is the application you built, they don't have to kind of download your repository, run it themselves to see how it works. They can see it online, right? Then these are the basic things like learning about React hooks, learning about React context API, which is on the go thing, which are going to be really interesting if you have no experience with that. If you have, don't worry, there is going to be something new. Okay, so also with that being said, we will be understanding about how you can structure your code. It's not something which I started out with, so I really think this can be really helpful because I started out with a very simple code structure, which was not the best once you scale. So I have worked on a production level application, and now I understand how you should structure your code properly so that it can be scalable and easy to read and stuff like that. So we will learn about that. So if that excites you, make sure to hit that like button, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and let's begin. So to begin with, we have created a fresh new project by running npx create react app and providing the application name. So now what we will do is we will first run this application so that you can see what it is and how a fresh application look like if you haven't already before. So it will ask a condition that we are already running this. So I'm just going to hit enter, and now you can see this is going to be the project which we get once we create a new fresh React project. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get rid of all things which we don't need. We don't need the logo. I'm going to delete that. We don't need these tests because we are not going to work on it. So I'm going to get rid of the test. I'm going to get rid of that. So let me just quickly remove that. Okay, once that is done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside the app.js file. Inside of that, here is all the code written for that, what was visible. So things like edit and save and reload, things like that. All the things which were mentioned here was from this component. This is basically a React component. This is how we call things in React. And this is not actually HTML. This is JSX, if you don't know about that. So I'm just going to write a simple paragraph. Hello, I am Sanskar. Okay, so I have deleted this logo, so I'm going to get rid of that. So if I will save that now and reload that, you can see I have my name here. Now this comes with some styling already. I don't want to use them, so I'm just going to get rid of all of them. And once I will save that, you can see it is at this particular site. Now what I will do is I will also make sure to remove this padding, which is provided, padding and margin, which is provided by the browser itself. So you just need to go inside index.css, and then we will say star, and we will say margin 0, and we will say padding 0. This is just to get rid of this default. Now you can see it's starting from the cot. Okay, so that's the bare bones. We just have created a project and we just got rid of what we don't need. So what do we need actually? Well, we will have this navbar, we will have this create post option, and if the user is not logged in, we will show that please log in if you want to create post and comment, right? That is the fallback which we will show for this create a post thing, right? Then we have these posts, so we will be creating them as well. So first let me show you how I structure my code. So I'm just going to create a new folder. First one we are going to call components. Then we will have containers. So we have these two folders, and then we will have one more folder for the pages. So this is how it works. Components will have all the widget components. Sorry, I come from Flutter first, so that's why I may call widgets or something. But at the end, what it means is reusable, like kind of component, anything which is reusable. So for example, here, if I will reload this, you can see this sign in with Google button. I don't write the same piece of code here and here to create that, right? What I did is I created a component out of it, and then I can use it wherever I want. So that's exactly what is going to happen inside of this components folder. We will have multiple component, and they will be once created and they can be used multiple times. Now containers will have something like this. So this is a whole post. Post consists of multiple components. What is component exactly, Sanskar? Component is anything, like it can be an image, it can be text. Everything in React is component, like everything in Flutter is widgets, stuff like that. So we have this whole container. This also is a container. This navbar itself is kind of a container. That's how I usually structure my code, right? Then we have this pages. So what is pages? Pages is basically a screen. So this is a home page, right? So that's what it is called. For pages, we are just going to have one, which is home page. But I would still like to show you exactly how I structure for making sure that I can scale this application without having to worry about changing how I structured the code again and again. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how we can do this, right? So first I'll go inside the pages. I'll create a folder called home, and inside of that folder I'll have an index.js file, and then we have a style.css file. So index.js file will contain all the JSX and all the React thing happening. So the user interface by JSX, right? And the functions, what we want to do, all of that will be happening in this file. And the styling for the home page will be given in this file. Now, keep in mind that all of these separate styling. So for example, the styling for the button will be in the components itself. So for example, I'll have a sign in button. So I can say sign in, sign again, sign. Yeah, this time I was right. So sign in with sign in button. So I can say sign in button, right? And inside of that, I can create index.js file and style.css. And we will have index.js file in every folder. These components, we will have it inside the container as well. And we will have one inside the pages as well. So index.js. So here is how it works. Why I did create this index.js file is because all the different components which I will create through this, I will not be directly importing them from their folder like that. What I will do is, it is called kind of double exporting, however you want to call it. Not sure about how we call it, but this is how it works. So we will export it through this particular file. So as a user, what I will be able to do is, if I have defined any component inside this as a developer, so if I have defined any particular folders inside of it, I will be able to just import this components folder, and I will be able to access all of them by mentioning them one by one, of course. You will be able to understand more and more once we go further, once you will see how I'm exactly using this, right? So let me show you that. So first we want to export this sign in button. So I'm just going to say sign in button, and I'm going to say sign in button. So what I did here? Basically what I'm doing is I'm exporting this particular sign in button. So user don't have to import it by importing this folder, which is sign in button. Now, one thing which you should know about is, in major cases, what you will do is, if you want to use a component inside of this file, inside maybe this file, then what you will do is you will import this file. But one thing which happens is if you scale your application, you're not going to provide them unique name again and again. It just creates a lot of confusion. So that's why I really like this kind of folder format and exporting them like this, index.js. So let's continue further. Let me just close all of them, right? Yeah. So just to say, things may seem a little bit complicated, but don't worry. If you watch the video till the end, I can say for sure you will be able to understand all of this stuff. Okay. So now let's continue. So what I'm going to do now is create the sign in button. So here is how we create a React component. So I have this extension installed. It's called JSX. Let me show you that. Where is it? This is ES6 code snippets. So through this, what I'm able to do is I can just go inside this index.js file. I can say RFC, and I have this React component. So I'm going to call it sign in button. Okay, so this is the sign in button. We will be using the bare naming convention. So I'm going to give it a name of sign in button. Now I want to use this button inside of the home page. So I will just have something here so that I can show you that, we have something. So I'm just going to say p tag and I'm going to say sign. Yeah, this time it is correct. Sign in with Google, right? So sign in with Google. Now I'm going to import this in the home, but even the home is not itself nothing right now, right? So let's create that. So I'll say RFC and I'll create a home widget. And according to the bare naming convention, I'm going to give it a class name of home. So far, so good. Any questions? If you have, do let me know in the comment. I usually try to answer as many as I can. Okay, so now what I'm going to do? Well, we are in the home. So I want to use this home inside this app.js. This is the place from where I'm showing all of it, right? So you can see I'm showing this hello, I'm Sanskar Tiwari from here. So I want to show this home component from here. So now let me clear the index.js file thing, this outer one. So one thing which I can do is, let me get rid of that, cut it, and I'm adding that to the home page so that you can see if I will be able to show this only and only if I am able to import home, right? So there are two ways to import home. I can say home, and you can see I imported that through pages/home. This is the one way, right? The whole problem with this is whenever you will change the place of this home, you have to change it everywhere you have changed. Everywhere you have imported home. On the other hand, if I do like this, so for example, I copy that and I export it like this. So I export a home page and I'm exporting it from ./home. So I don't have to exactly mention the file. I can just mention the folder. And because my file inside of it is named index.js, it will be directly able to get that. So now if I go inside of this app.js, what I can do is I can say home. And you can see we can auto import from /pages. We don't have to import it from that particular folder location, right? So now what happens is if for some reason I kind of created more folders inside of pages and maybe kind of change the location of home inside of pages itself, then I just have to update it over here and all the imports which are happening for home page will be taken care of. I hope that makes sense, right? Now, so you can see we have this home imported. We can see that. Now I am going to import inside my home that sign in button which I created, not this one. So I'm going to say sign in button. Again, I can import it directly from like that, but I would like to import it from here. So how can I do that? Well, I can go inside the home. I can say sign in. So again, I did the same button. It's not sig, it's going to be sign in. So let me make sure where I misspelled it. Sign in, it's correct. And if I see it here, it's wrong. So let me update that and sing again. Sign in. Okay, so now we are perfect. And let's give it a try. So sign in button. So you can see I can directly import it from components, not from the sign in button folder. So I'll just do that. Okay, so now I have the sign in button. If I will reload, you can see we have the sign in with Google option, right? This is basically the sign in button. So now let's go on and give it some styling. So for styling, you can see we have this red color and we have a little bit of padding top and bottom. I have given it a max width as well. So yeah, let's see how we can do that. So just to copy it, let me copy the color code which we are going to use. So let's go ahead and import the styles first of all, so that we can use the styles file. So I'll just say styles. What this line of code does, it is now we can use this styles.css styles inside of this. So basically I can use this class and I can provide it some styling. So I can go inside of it. I can say, first thing first, I want the background color to be this, which I just copied. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to add a hash because this is a hex code. So if I'll save that, you can see we have, let me save that too. We should be able to, yeah. So you can see we have this red color, but that's not exactly what we want, right? So first thing first, I'll give it a max width. I don't want it to take the whole width. So I'm going to give it a max width of 150 pixels. That's more than enough. Then I'm going to give it a text align. I don't want the text to be aligned from start. You can see it have no space from starting, but it has some space in the end. So basically this is because of the text aligning. It's starting from the start, but I want that text to be aligned in the center. So I'll save that. So you can see now it has same amount of spacing from both sides. Now I think there should be more padding horizontally and vertically. So I will add that. I'll say padding and around 8 pixel vertically and 16 pixel horizontally. And if I will save that, you can see it will look something like this. Now the next step, what I will do is I'll add a border radius. So the border radius which I added was 4 pixels. If you want it to be a little bit more circular, you can always increase this number or decrease this number according to your preference. Now I'm going to add a color which is going to be white. This color basically defines the font color. Okay. So if I'll save that, you can see we have the font color. Now I also want the font size to be a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to say font size around 14 pixels. So you can see now it looks much better. I think it looks really thin right now. So we want to give it a little bit of a font weight. So I'm going to say font weight, and that is going to be around 500. Now it might not look exactly the same like this because I used a custom font in this one. So let's see how we can use a custom font from Google Fonts in our React application. So I'm just going to visit Google Fonts, and one of the font which I like a lot is this one, where it is. This one, Poppins, right? This one. And I'm going to use 2 of these. So first is this regular 400 and then this medium 500. Let me select that, please. Medium 500. Done. So once you have selected, click on this and then click on this import one, because we are going to directly import it through our CSS file. If you want to add it inside your HTML, then you can use this. I'm going to import it like this. So I'll copy that, move on to my index.css file right over here. And at the top, I'm just going to paste this import URL. Now, once you will provide that, I also want to make sure to have all of these so that if you are using it on a Mac, initially it will start with the Apple font rather than showing you a sans serif. So what I will do is I'll just, let me close that. We don't need it anymore. I'll start with this. So this is what it means. It will, if we have Poppins, then it will show that. If we don't, then it will move on to the next ones, right? So let me go back. So you can see we have now Poppins. So if I'll just reload to make sure, you can see the font is changed. So that's how easy and quick it is to add a font from Google Font. If you like some other fonts, go ahead, give it a try. And yeah, as always, do make sure to share your repository links once done in the description. I'll really be looking forward to looking at what you build by watching this video. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we have the button. So let's move on to creating the navbar. So I'm going to close that, close this. And what do you think? Navbar will be a widget or it will be a container? I hope you answered it correctly. It is going to be a container. So I'm going to say navbar. And inside navbar, we will have the same structure, index.js file, and we will have a style.css. So let's say style.css. And then to create that component of navbar, we will just say RFC and we will say navbar. Then following the BEM naming convention, I'll give it a name of navbar. Now, one thing which I missed was, let me share with you. So if you go to your app.js file, you can see it has this capital. This is not how BEM naming convention works. So I'm going to change that as well. Okay, so let's go back to our navigation bar. So this navbar will have a text, which is this React social. So this can be just a paragraph. This can be H1. It just depends on what you want. I recommend you to go with the paragraph because this is not something heading or something. This is just a text, right? So I'm going to say React social. You can go with H3 or H4 if you like. Okay, so we will have that, and then we need the button. So I hope you're clear how we can use the button. We can just say sign in button, and that's all. You don't have to create the whole button again. That's the power of reusable components, right? And that's the whole point of using React rather than directly coding in HTML, CSS. It also provides a lot of functionality. We cannot directly compare it with HTML, CSS coding. So yeah, let's move on. So we have this now, but Sanskar, it's not visible, right? So let's show that navigation bar so that we can continue styling it. So I'm going to copy this nav bar, make sure I'm exporting it. So how do we export? We use this. So we said export default as nav bar. By the way, you will have the source code link in the description, so don't worry about it. Now, then you can just say /navbar. So now we will be able to export navbar directly through the containers folder, not through the navbar folder. So let me show you how. So if I go inside my home, I can just say navbar and I can say / and done. So now you will be able to see a navbar. So you can see that it has a React social text and it has a sign in with Google button. Well, the whole thing is I don't want the sign in button directly here, so I'm going to get rid of that. And for this one, I don't want the structure to be like this. I want the sign in with Google button over here. So that is about the styling. So let's go ahead and provide some styling in it. To provide styling, first we will import style. So I'll say style.css like that. And now we have this navbar class name. So I'll go inside the style.css.navbar and I'll provide the display to be flex. So this is whenever you want these component to be aligned horizontally, you can just provide display flex. You can even provide it when you want these to be vertical. You can just say flex direction to be column. So you can learn all about flex. I can create a separate video about this, but overall to structure these in like horizontal manner, I'm using display flex. Then what I'm going to do is I want a space between. So how I want these both of these components to be arranged is that there should be as much space as they can between them. So for that, I'm going to say justify content and space between. So if I will save that, you can see it looks something like this. Now what I want is I want to add some padding. So let me make sure I'm adding the same padding which I added for my previous application. So that was around 12 pixel horizontal vertically and 24 pixel horizontally. So let's provide the same. So I'll say padding and I'll say 12 pixel vertically and 24 pixel horizontally. So you can see we have a bit quite similar to how it looks here, right? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the next line and I want to provide a background color to it. Background color, but you will be like, Sanskar, it's already white. Well, the whole reason is I will be providing this color as a background color. So this is a good Chrome extension. I'll add a link to this Chrome extension as well in the GitHub repository. So you can use it to get the color from my website, right? So I just grab the color code, which is F32EF. So I'm going to provide that as a background color for my home page. So how I can do that? I can go inside the home. I can import styles. I can say styles.css. It's style, by the way, not styles. It's style. So in style, I want to provide to this home class name. So I'll say dot because it is a class. And inside of that, I'll say background color, hash, and this code. Okay, we already have that. So if I will save this now, you will be able to see this color over here. Now you will be saying, no, I cannot see it. Well, the reason for that is the height of this home is equals to navbar right now. So I'm going to provide it height. This is just for some time, 100 VH. This 100 VH means the vertical height of the viewport height. Think of it like that. So 100% of that. So you can see now I have provided 100% width, height. So now we have that background color. Okay, so Sanskar, let's move on and create this create post option. So how this particular section works is if the user is logged in, then we will show this sign in with Google to post and comment. Oh, sorry, if the user is not logged in, then we will show this. If he is logged in, then we will show him an option to create a post. Clear? So let's first create this, right? So I'm going to go inside the containers, and inside of that, I'm going to create a new folder, and this is going to be a create post, right? And I'm going to create a new file, index.js. I'm going to create a new file, style.css. And inside of that, I'm going to say RFC, and I'm going to say create post. Clear? Now, according to BAM naming convention, I'll give it a name like this, create post. Clear so far? Now, what do we want? We want this sign in button. Well, that's pretty easy to do. Sign. I'm always doing sync. What is wrong, man? sing. Okay, so now this is sign in. Perfect. Now we have a sign in button. We also want this text to post and comment. So I'll add that. I'll say span, or let's make it easy for you to understand. So we have this paragraph which says to post and comment. Now, if I'll have a look, I'll have nothing obviously, because this create post is created, but we need to add this one to our home page, right? How can we do that? Well, similar to how we did for navbar. I'll copy this line. Wait, it is gone. I'll copy this line and paste it again, and I'll do that same for create post. So I'll say create post, and then I'll export ./create post. So now I will be able to import this create post outside, for example, from home, directly from the containers. So you will see one added here. So let me show you. If I'll say create post, you can see import from /. container. So if I hit enter, you can see it directly added this create post here, right? So now if I'll save it, you can see we have it. I have it here. Now, similar to how we did for the navigation bar, we also want same for the create post, that sign in with Google will be in the start, and to post and comment will be at the right hand side to it. So that is something with styling. So if we want to provide a styling, what do? We first import style.css. So I'll say style.css, and then I'm going to use the class name, go inside of the CSS file and provide that a display flex property. Flex, and this will make sure they are side by side. But you will be like, Sanskar, this is at the top. I want this to be in the center of this button, like that. So for that, you just have to say align items and center, and that will make sure they are in the center. One thing which I also like to have is this should be in the center of the center horizontally, right? Both of these should be in the center horizontally. So how can I do that? Well, it's pretty simple. You just have to say justify content, right? So it is in the center. Now, for now, what is happening is this create post component have the same height as much as the button have. But I want this to take a little bit of a padding, right? It should have a little bit of space at the top and the bottom. So how can I do that? Well, I can just add some padding, and I'm going to add around 16 vertically and 24 horizontally. And if I will save that, you can see we have it here. It looks perfect now. You can increase it if you like. If you like 18, you may like 20, whatever you like. You can increase that to that amount, and the spacing will be added. Let's go with 24. I guess it should be better. Let me just get rid of this and save that. So you can see now it's perfect. I want a little bit of space between this sign in with Google button and this text. So how can I do that? Well, I can just go inside the p tag. I can mention the styling property of it, and then I can say margin left. So margin left will add around 16 pixel, and we need to make sure it's starting from there. And now you can see we have a margin left around 16 pixel. You can decrease it if you like. So for example, I am thinking to go with something like 12 pixel. This looks too much. So now it's fine. So now we have this create post section, but we just have a fallback option for now. Now, without any further ado, let's connect our React application with Firebase so that we can implement the sign in with Google functionality. To do so, you just have to visit firebase.com. And once you will visit that, all you have to do is go to your console. So how Firebase works is Firebase is a service by Google. You can read more about them. They have a lot of different functionality which you can use. We are going to go with through authentication, database, and storage today. So that will be really interesting. All you have to do is make sure you're logged in with a Gmail account, and you don't have to sign up or anything. You know, they are a company by Google, so they directly already have your information. So you just have to click on go to console, right? Once you will do that, you will be able to see a console where you have all the projects. So if you have created a Firebase project before with React or with whatever any framework, you will be able to see that. So I have created this before, which is this one, React Insta. I can use it directly, or I can create a new project. So let me show you how to create a new project. So I just will say React Insta, which means tutorial, like that. Okay, so I can click on continue now. You can or you cannot, like depends on your requirement. Firebase, and you can add Google Analytics to your project for free. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to continue. It's free, but I don't personally like to add Google Analytics a lot. Okay, so we are going to wait for a second or so, till the project created. Let me tell you about what is going to happen now. So once we have the project ready, we will connect it with our React application, and then we will implement the sign in with Google option, so that a user can click on the sign in with Google button and he will be able to sign in with Google. So let's see how we can do that. I'm going to click on continue. And then to connect, it's very easy to connect. You just have to click on this web icon. Give it a name if you like. So for example, if I have a project in which there are multiple applications, I can understand which one it is by their nickname. So this is something for us as a developer only. We will be able to see it in our console, but not for the user. So you can give it whatever you want. So I am going to give it React Insta Tutorial. And we will be setting it up later, the Firebase hosting, so you don't have to check it right now. Once you will do that, it will give you all the different keys required to connect it with your application. So I'm going to just copy all of them. So like this. And then what I'll do is I'll create a new folder for this. I'm going to minimize all of it. So I'll create a new file. I'll call it Firebase.js and add that here. Now, how adding Firebase works is, you can see it is giving us an option to add this script files and all. You don't have to do that. With React, what we will do is we will go into the terminal. Let me add a new one. The first one is already running the application for us. So in this one, I have to write yarn add Firebase. If you use npm, then you will say npm install Firebase. So we are installing a package, right? This is what we are doing. So once we will install the Firebase package, we will be able to use Firebase services. So all of that it involves authentication. It involves Firebase Firestore, which is the database for storing all of your text kind of content. Then if you want to store images, there is a Firebase storage, which we also will learn about. So let's give it a few seconds, and once it is done, I'll be right back. Okay, so the Firebase is installed successfully. Now what we have to do is configure it correctly. So to do so, first you have to import Firebase. For that, I'm going to say import Firebase from Firebase. Okay, so that's the importing part of it. Let me just add a semicolon at the end. Then I'm going to define a variable. I'm going to call it constant. And it is going to be called Firebase config, this one. Okay, so all of these values. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say constant Firebase app is equals to, let's make it camel case like we are doing. So we will say Firebase dot initialize app, and there we will provide this Firebase config. So now it's configured. Now what we want to do is we will be using multiple features from Firebase. So the first one is the database. So to use database, I'll be creating a constant DB, and then I'll say Firebase app, which we just defined here, dot Firestore. Okay, so later on you will see how I will be exporting this and then importing it in any file, and then I'll be able to use the database functionalities. Then I'll say constant auth is equals to Firebase dot auth. Then I'll create constant storage is equals to Firebase dot storage. Okay, this is for the for storing the images. Then we will have constant provider. This is for our Google sign. Okay, then I'll say new Firebase dot auth dot Google auth provider. Once we have all of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to export all of this. So I'm going to say export db auth authentication, which is right, and provider and the storage. So this is how we use all these database and storage provider, all of in other files as well. So that's why I'm exporting it. So once all of that is done, let me close it all and let's move on to our sign in with Google button, so that we can integrate that sign in with Google functionality. Okay, so to do so, what I'm going to do is, rather than adding it directly in this file, I'm just going to create one more file. I'm going to call that folder services. Inside of that, we will have a auth.js, In this one, we will have all the authentication related functions, which you can call from whichever widget you want, whichever component you want. Overall, so you don't have to, define it again and again. You have the functions and you will be able to use them any way you want. Now, first thing first, I'll be using authentication and provider in this one. So we will be importing them from the Firebase file, this Firebase.js. We just defined them, remember, these ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say // I'll be able to see, so I can see the Firebase file, so I'll import that from there. And now what I'll do is I'll create a function. So this is how we can do that. Sign in, again, sign in with Google is equals to like that and that and that. So this is how we define a function. Now I will be exporting this function so that anyone from any file can import this function and can use it. So that's why I added export. Then what I'll do is let's create a user. So I'll say let user, and then I will say auth dot sign in with, again, sign in with pop-up. Okay, so that Google sign in pop-up, and we will provide the provider of that pop-up, which is our Google sign in, which we have already exported from here, which is this Google Auth provider, and we are importing that inside this auth.js file. So now then what I will do is then once this is done, what I would like to do is then I would like to get the whatever the value which we got, and then I'm going to say console.log, and inside of that I'll say res.user. Okay, so this will give us the user which we get. So I can now say that the let user which I did, I can say user is equals to res.user. Okay, then what I'll do is once this is done, I'll also add a catch error, so that if any kind of error happens, I can catch that. So I can say error, and then I can say that arrow, and then I can say console.log, where it is, console.log, and then I can say error.message, where it is, error, this one, making sure this spelling is same, then I can say error.message. So this will give us the exact error message which we need to see. You can also do an alert. So basically if anything goes wrong, it will show us a console or it will give us an alert. Now, before this is done, we don't want to move further, because the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to return the user, right? So if I'm returning the user information and I haven't even got that, it will be always done, right? So first I'll await for this, which means I will wait until this all is done, then only I'll return. So to use await, you need to add async. This is how it works. Just to repeat it again, so that's very clear. We need to wait for this to be done, because this will take some time, right? The sign in pop-up will open, you will select an account, then it will sign you in. So until and unless this is done, we will not be returning the user, right? So we will wait for this to be done. That's why we are using await, and to use await, we will be defining our function as an asynchronous function. Okay, so with that being done, now next part is going to be the logout function. So I'll say export, and then I'll say constant log out. Okay, now in this function, it's going to be very simple. Let me show you. Logout is equals to like that. So this is how we define a function, and I just added export so that we can use this function from other files as well. So now what I'm going to say, I'm going to define a variable. It's going to be logout success. So basically, whenever I'll call this function from any file, I just want to return that if the logout was successful or not. According to that value in that particular file, wherever I'm calling the logout from, I can do thing or so. So if it is logged out, I can just send him to the correct screen. I can show him the right thing he should be, or that should be visible to him. Right? I hope that all makes sense. Now, I will be awaiting for this same how I awaited for the sign in. So I'll say auth.signout. It's that easy, right? It's that easy. Nothing more than that. But just for the sake, so that we can make sure we can return that if it is a success or not, I'll just, once this is done, what I'll do is I'll return or provide this logout success a value of true. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll say catch, and I'll also catch for an error. So if we face any error, we will print it out in the console, so that we are clear about what this is the error we are facing, and we can fix it. So I'll say error.message. So Now we have the logout success, and if we are successful, we will be able to provide the value to it. Then I can say return, and then I can provide that logout success. Okay, so this function will work like this. If I will call it from some particular file, it will return logout success. If it is true, then it will return that. If it is null, then it will return that. So null means that it was not successful. That's why it was not able to provide the value to it. If it was successful, then only it will have a true value. In that case, I can do things accordingly. So that's all you need to create a function for creating a function with sign in with Google. Now what we will do is we will add this function to that particular sign in button. So let's see how we can do that. So what we will do is, let's move on to that sign in button. I'll go inside of that. Okay, so we just have this right now, right? So now we will be using something called React hooks. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say use state, and it will give you a structure of how we can create a hook. So I'm going to create a hook for the user. So this is a user, and if you're not aware a lot about how this hook works, let's get into it a little bit later. First, let's complete the sign-in process, right? So how the sign-in process will be, I'll create one more function, which is going to be sign-in button click. So this is the function which will be called once the sign-in button is clicked. I hope the function name makes sense, right? So this is the function. Nothing is special, just created a function. This is how we create a function, by the way. We can also create it by mentioning it like this, function, and then provide a name of that function, and then we can do it like this. So these are the two ways we can do. This is how I am doing it. So let me remove that. Okay, so now what I will do is I'll create a let user is equals to await, and then I'll say sign in with Google. So this is the function which we defined inside the auth file. Remember, services and then auth file. So I imported that function, and I will wait for its response, because again, it's not going to be an instant response. It's going to take some time. So I'll be using await, and now I can provide async here, because we need to use await. That's why I'll be using async here. Now, what do I want to do? Okay, let me make sure. What is it saying? It's saying await is only allowed with async function. So it is a asynchronous function. Let me make sure of that. Await, async, await. It's not a asynchronous function. Now it should be fine. Let me reload this. Okay, so now it makes sense. So let's move on to the process. So now what will happen is we will show the pop-up if it is successful. We have the user, we will return that user, and that user will be saved to this this particular variable. Now, if the user is not null, which means we are successfully logged in, what I will do is I'll say set user. Now this is when I'm using the hooks. So basically what I'm doing is I'm saving a value to this. Now here is how hooks works. So we have something called variable, right? How variable works is you can update the value of it whenever you want. How hooks works is they are kind of a variable, but you can only set their value using this particular function. So this is the variable, and this is the function which is set that particular variable name. So it is constant because you cannot directly say user is equals to something, right? You cannot say that. Just to make sure you're not confused, this is the user we get of user by site name, just so that you're not confused about it. Okay, so this is the user information. So now if we have the user, I'll set the user. So this is the function by which we can set the value of that user. This is the variable in itself, right? So how hooks works is whenever you will update the value of hook, wherever, in whichever component it is being used, React will re-render that component so that we have the latest information visible on the screen. So that's how this is helpful compared to using a variable where you have to yourself re-render the whole component, right? So that's how hooks works for the functional components. So now we have that. So what do I want to do next is let me set the user with the value which we got from him. There we go. So that is done. Now, one thing which I want to make sure of is I just don't want to use a user from in this file, which is this one. I want to use user in the other files as well, because I will be creating a feed, I will be creating a post, I will be creating a lot of different components. I want to be able to use this user in all of them. So how can I do that? Well, to do that, we can, the first option can be, you can get this sign in from the app.js, basically like kind of prop dealing it's called, but just don't worry about it. So the best option using context API. So how we can do this with context API is we will create a context API. Let me show you. I'll create a new folder. It will have all the context which I'm going to use. And here is how we create a context. So I'm going to create a user context. So I'll say user.js. Now for context, here is how we create a context. First, you have to say import create context, and we will use state. So this is a combination of context and hooks. So I'll say from React. Once you will do that, move on and create an export constant user context. You will be much clearer once we will use this, but let me first show you how we create it. Export constant, and then I'll say user context provider is equals to, we will provide the props, and then I'm going to say, now we will be using hooks. So I'll say use state like that, this one. So now I'll define that to be user, and the initial value for this is going to be null. Okay, then we will return we will return a user context dot provider, and like that. Now this will return not just this provider, but with the props props children which we got. So I'll say props dot children. Okay, and then I'll provide some value, and this value is nothing but the value of this particular one. So I'll say user. Now all of this might make no sense for now. It doesn't did for myself as well for the first time, but believe me, once you will use it once or twice, it is really easy to do. Basically, once you will create this whole structure, now what you have is this particular user, this value of hook, this user value can be used wherever inside whichever widget which is inside of this user context provider. What do I mean by that? So if I go to app.js, what I want to do is I want to be able to use this user value not only inside the home page, but let's say if I have another page that can be a settings page, that can be a profile information page, something like that. I also want to use the user information there. So what I will do is I will go inside this app. This is the first component. I'll remove all of it, and I'll say user context provider, and I'll wrap my whole component, which is the whole application component, inside of that user context provider. So now I will be able to use this particular value, and I can add more. So for example, I added something like if a snack bar is visible, something like that, right? You can add more and more hooks here, and you can provide their values here by mentioning name of that, and then you can add like this, right? I hope it makes sense. We will be using more in upcoming projects. For this one, we just have one. So yeah. So now once you have that, what you can do is inside wherever you are using this user, or wherever you are setting the value or getting the value, both the things. Now, rather than using this use state, you can say use context. So we are using the value from context. So I'll say context, and I'll say user context. And now here is the reason why I mentioned export here, because we are using this user context, which created a context, and with that context in mind, we created this user context provider, which is returning user context, which is this context which we created dot provider, and we provide the children's inside of it. So you can see we provided the children's inside of it, and we are returning the children's with the value. If all of this does not make sense, take it as a boilerplate code. You are going to write it quite similar again and again. So the whole thing comes down to just keep building more, right? And you will be able to understand it much better. Now, if we just have this user value, so for example, if I was just providing this user value, if I get rid of it like that, then it would be fine that if I would just be providing user value, then it will be fine to be going like this. But I also want to be able to scale so that if I have other values as well, I will be able to export them. So that's why I'm providing it like this. So in that case, we will be mentioning use context, user context dot user, like this. If I'll save that, let's see. So it is mentioning in sign in button, which is the sign in button. We need to import this use context. So where can we import this? Over here. So once you will do that, you can see we have it. Now it's saying use context is not defined. Where is it not defined? Sign in button .index.js use context. Let me make sure of that. I'll say use context just to make sure the spelling is correct. Not sure why it's not. We have the user context which you provided and the user. Let me just do it like that. Let me reload so that we can make sure we have the latest changes, and I think it makes sense now. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, what I want to do is, whenever someone will click on this, because this is the whole button, right? Whenever someone will click, I want to call this function, which is sign in button click. So if I'll save that, this function will basically set the user here, just to make sure we can show that we are actually saving the user. We can console.log the user information. So I'm just going to say user by saying the sign. Let me just show you user by sign in, right? And then I can just save that. So now let's see if this works. I'm going to open up my console.log and clear it all, and then go over here inside Firebase, click on this authentication, because we have to turn Google sign in on from Firebase dashboard. So I'll click on authentication. Once I'll click on it, it will show me this option. I'll click on get started. And once I'll do that, it will show me an option where I can turn this Google sign in on. You can mention what is the public facing project name. So I'm going to call it React Insta Tutorial. And for an email, you can select your email. Once all of this is done, it will show you that it is done. Just give it a second or so. Okay, sometimes it takes time, so just reload and it will be done. So let's give it a second or so. And okay, it is enabled, you can see, right? So now let's go ahead, reload this and click on sign in with Google. And let's see if we are able to sign in with Google. Okay, so it's untitled for now. So you can see now we have the URL at least. So, okay, it's working. And now I can select an account. So for example, the Indian app guy. And I should be able to see the details of my account in the console. So you can see I am able to see that. So you will be asking, Siska, you are able to see them twice, right? So the reason for that is because if we go inside the functions where we created, I'm actually logging the user inside there as well. So you can get rid of it from here. So what are the values which we got? Let me show you. We got the email, we got the display name, which is my name. We also got the profile picture, which is here, photo URL. So yeah, these are all the things which we will be using. So now what I want to do is, once the user logged in with the, so we have something in this user, right? I want to remove the sign in with Google button and just show the user profile picture. So let's see how we can do that. So for that, you have to go to your navigation bar. Where is it? I'll close that container. There is a navbar. So inside the navbar, I'll use the hooks here with context. So how will I do that? I'll say use state. First, let's import that so that you can see we have it here. Well, we are not going to use state directly. We are going to use context. So first import that. So now we have it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say use state. And we have this, ES7 snippet. So I'm just going to get that. And I'm going to say this is users. So you can literally copy this, but I just want to write it again. So I'll say set user. And here we are going to get the data from context. So I'll say use context. And then I'm going to use the user context. Okay. And then I will say dot user. So now we will have the same information which was saved here. Now we are not using the value of user here, so I can get rid of that. And here we want to use that. So what I will say here is So using these curly bracket, we can use JavaScript inside of HTML. And that is the whole way how JSX is different from HTML. Inside of JSX, we can use JavaScript. Inside of it, we have a different naming. So for example, in HTML, you just directly say class is equals to the name of that class. Here we have a class name and stuff like that. So here what I will do is I'll say user question mark, which means if this is null, then it do this, or kind of return this. If this is false, then return this. Okay, so this is basically how it is. So what I want to do is, if this is true, which means the user is logged in, we have the user information, then we want to show is, let's just show a paragraph now. Hey, logged in. If he is not logged in, then we will show the button. So if I'll save that now, you will be able to see that we will have this hey logged in text, right? So I don't want to show that. I'm just going to show an image. So I'll say image, and the source will be user dot photo URL. So how do I know this is going to be dot photo URL? Remember, we were watching it. I think it's not here now. It is. So you can see if we go, where is it? Here we go. So this is the key. So that's why I'm using photo URL, and this is the value for it. So now what I can do is I can close this. Just to make sure I'm providing it a good styling, I'm going to say give it a class name so that I can give it some styling. And this is how the naming convention will go. Okay. So now you will be able to see an image. I don't want it to be this big and like that. So I'm going to go inside the styles.css and provide it some styling. So I'll say navbar image, and then I'll provide it a height of 14 pixel. I think I provided 35. So let's go with that, 35 pixel. Then I want a border radius. So I'll say border radius. I can go with 8 pixel. Now you can see we have that. So that looks pretty similar, right? So now what I want is, once we are logged in, we should show a create post box rather than showing this a sign in with Google. So let's see how we can quickly do that.